in 7th standard, I remember writing my first story that got rejected. That's like big red marks everywhere.
Was this in school?
Yeah, in school. I feel like it took me about 2.5 years to be like, I'm like, hey man, I'm a screenplay writer. And it's a live show. So we're telling the host saying, hey, please stall 2 more minutes because the guy who's supposed to present is going to go to the toilet. And the host is like, what do you mean stall? I'm literally at, and the next presenter is. So I'm running my way backstage, be like, so please don't go to the toilet. So please don't go to the toilet.
Are you a loser? Are you a freak? Do you need a lover? Don't talk to me. Don't talk to me. Don't bother me.
Welcome to another episode of Real Strugglers, where we talk to real actors and filmmakers and writers and authors about their struggles in the film industries of India and the chaotic world that they occupy and they exist in. His name is Karan.
And I'm hosting it.
And my name is Mukesh Manjunath. I'm the guest. You should read books because you specifically read this book because reading is good for your mental health and health, physical health. This book you should read because I wrote it. It's called The Age of Heroes.
And if you read, people get impressed.
Man, you don't even know what it's like when you write books.
Why people get impressed, right? When you say I'm an author, they're like...
It's crazy. Now there are I have 3 friends.
Mukesh is a screenwriter. He's not an actor. He's not the guy you've seen the start of movies. He's a screenwriter and an author. And he's just written this book, The Age of Heroes, which is about the fascinating world of Telugu cinema and the obsession of Telugu fans with their heroes.
Yeah, it's about people who love Telugu cinema. And
there's nothing about obsession in it, right?
It's not about obsession. It's just love. It's love.
Pure love.
Pure love.
So I know Mukesh through Ritasha, who is a common friend. Ritasha and him worked on a film together where they killed dogs in the film.
We don't kill the dogs. The dogs came pre-killed. And we explore the mystery.
But he doesn't like dogs.
Guys, I love dogs. I think dogs don't love me. So I'm just like, hey, let's be... I love dogs. I love dogs, please. Dude, I just made 3 friends. No, I really like dogs. But I think it's just nice to keep them...
At a distance.
At a distance. A 1-arm distance, right? Come on, in school, we kept our friends at a 1-arm distance. So I think it's fine if we keep dogs at a 1-arm distance.
And so Mukesh does screenwriting. He's written for award shows and now he's written a book. And so Mukesh, why did you get into writing?
Why did I get into writing? Because I couldn't do engineering. Honestly, that was a big reason. Huh?
Did you try?
I did try. And I was like, I tried to make it like, no man, this is what I really love. But actually, because I just didn't understand thermodynamics. Why did I get into writing? I think from when we were kids, all of us at some level, we were trying to read stories and we were all reading stories, and then the act of telling a story just felt very liberating. And somehow, it felt like, hey, if you could end up being one of those people that tell stories and reading itself was such an intimate act that it felt like I want to be a part of this, right? And from reading, it then stems into watching. And you feel like all of these are such intimate acts and you want to be able to create such intimate spaces, whether it's in establishing a relationship with the reader or whether it's establishing a relationship with some sort of an audience member and a viewer. I think you want to be able to create those spaces, or pursuing a life that wants to create those spaces felt like a good thing. And also because I hate money, just hate money. So I said, let's be a writer.
But, there's also a big difference between reading and writing novels and books and a visual medium like cinema.
Yeah.
So, did you start seeing those differences early on when you were drawn towards writing?
I think like most people, a lot of people pick up books first and then films, or they pick up films and then books. Whereas luckily for me, they happened side by side, which means I was able to appreciate the strengths of the mediums individually, in the sense that books have the ability to like just really dive into a person's mind, especially books written in first person. So you get to go into places that a film can't take you. Whereas obviously films have their strengths, which is that because it feels like a third person narrative, you get so much more packed and you get loaded with so many more images, which I think was its strength. And somehow, if you pick up those strengths, and I feel like I did, at least I understood the nuances and the differences, it becomes a much easier space to navigate in terms of to understand what kind of stories you want to tell and also how to tell a story in each medium. So there are some episodes that work, like how would you write it when if you're writing it as an anecdote in a book versus if you're writing it as a scene in a film or a scene in a short film, say.
Yeah, and are there any other books that you kind of like did read about writing that kind of helped you understand the craft better?
There was a book by Alexander
McKendrick?
No, there's a writer called Alexander Chi. I think there are two things he does, right? He talks about storytelling. So you can write, it applies to
novels,
books
everything.
And films, right? Because ultimately, how do you want to tell stories? And he uses his identity. He's a South Korean American writer in the US. And I think that was very actually important to me. Because like I said, it talks about stories. It doesn't lock you in a screenplay or a novel or a memoir or biography. It says, hey, here's what I think how stories should work.
Like the positive, negative
I said positive,
changes
negative. It's
in
about
each scene.
how to channel, like how to use your voice, right? How to find your voice, how to use your personal experiences into telling stories. And I think his argument is that everything you write is coming from a space of something happened to me and therefore I'm telling it. And it could be the most obvious one, an autobiography, or it could be something much bigger. Or something, even if you write something wacky like say Star Wars, which doesn't seem like a personal story, but
yeah, but it's heavily inspired by the Clint Eastwood films from the 60s.
yeah, and also whatever happened,
And Japanese cinema.
and also whatever happens to the writer creator personally, whatever their fantasies are, how they view themselves, etc. Right? Do they view themselves as a boy lost in space, etc. Like however you would, and that's the argument of the book. And to me, that helped in not just writing this book, but I think in the
Finding
way
your voice.
Yeah, and trying to find a voice. So in the pursuit of finding a voice that we're all on, I think that book really made me understand how to navigate mediums, especially, and also like you said, look inwards and understand that pretty much anything that comes out of your mouth or out of your hands when you type it out comes from somewhere deep within, and how to look within and how to channel it.
And how old were you when you first started writing? Like creative writing, not
Yeah.
like ABC.
Not like ABC. Oh, damn it. Because that was in like, 17. No, I think in 7th standard, I remember writing my first story that got rejected. Like, that was like, that's like big red marks everywhere.
Was this in school?
Yeah, in school. And then I wrote a story about an English teacher who rejects the story, thinking, now she'll appreciate it. And she said, no, it's terrible. Yeah, so terrible. Yeah, that was probably how. And I think that's that thing, right? When you first meet your English teacher and you sort of want to impress her.
I don't know who your English teacher was.
No, you don't go through that thing where you wanted to impress your English teacher?
Not my English teacher. I don't think any teacher I wanted to impress.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, no, for me, I had this thing.
It was all a functional relationship. Like I wanted something from them, so I would like
Which
give
is
them
good
flowers
grades.
and chocolates and stuff like that.
Man, you really wanted to impress your English teacher. Stop and act cool now. I'd be like, bro, I was just being a man. I was just using them. You were totally gonna hit on your English teacher. So I'm not hit on, but I guess I impressed them.
Both my English teachers' children are my friends.
That's why you're doing this subtle act of, hey man, I was trying to use them for my personal benefit. No, but I think that, yeah, so somewhere there is when you start writing. Because the English teacher, somehow, at least for my life, English teachers or language teachers have been the kindest. And you sort of gravitate towards kindness. I don't know, like the kindest.
Yeah, the English teachers are always the nice ones.
I think in all languages. I think for me at least.
No, the
my Hindi teacher was really
Hindi
sweet.
teachers always mean to me.
Oh, really?
No, actually, no. They always had a soft spot for me because my Hindi was so bad.
Wait, they had a soft spot for me because the Hindi was so bad.
It's like, when you see like a kid on a wheelchair in the middle of
Oh.
a race.
Yeah,
I was the kid in the wheelchair.
So they were getting you flowers.
Yeah. But do you feel like writer's block is a thing, or is it like writing is something that you just have to, they're going into the office 9 to 5?
I think you have to treat it like a 9 to 5 even when you have the writer's block. I'm not saying I'm good at it. I'm terrible at it. I'm sure most writers are terrible at it. But you do at some level have to be like, okay, I'm going to dedicate, even if it's garbage, even if it's word vomit, I have to put something out on the page. And like, just if I'm just staring at a blank page or whatever, it's like, I don't know, I do feel like it's like working out, right? You're flexing muscles at some level. You're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days, but it's important to turn up at the gym. So I don't work out a lot. I don't know if that metaphor works out.
It works.
It works. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Workout metaphors. But yeah, it's something like that. Like I do feel like if there is a writing muscle, then I guess you just would keep training at it even on bad days. Yeah, and then I think it's just nice to keep experimenting. And I don't think even maybe reading is some sort of flexing. Maybe it's the warm up. more metaphors for you.
Yeah, it's also
for
like when you
workout.
watch a movie, like we should watch a movie that you really like at least for me, when I grab, like when I watched a movie, if I watch a movie that I really like, the first thing I want to do when I go back home after a movie is write.
Yeah, exactly, right? And I
Yeah.
think I do feel like when you stop at just watching a movie, it feels very passive. So I would be like, hey, let's go a step further and write about it, and that really helps. Even if it's just yourself in a journal or whatever it is.
I tried that during COVID, and I only could do that till COVID. And as soon as I finished COVID, I couldn't write anymore about the films I watched. I thought, because the problem is when you watch so many movies, you forget about the movie.
Yeah, fair enough.
You only remember like the impact the story made on you. Like,
Yeah, I feel like any consumption, I feel like you should do it moderately, and like I don't feel like you should. I think, does that make sense? Like I don't
Yeah.
think you should
content overload.
It's not just over, yeah. Your brain also won't be able to process. Like if you watch 4 films in a day, and you're like, how are you going to juggle all of those things and navigate that?
But okay, also writing styles have to evolve with like people's attention spans, right? Because now, for example, if you go back and watch like a Gone with the Wind, it's nearly 4 hours, 20 minutes. The pacing is very good, but it is slow. And now when you have a 90-minute movie and you don't have a gag every 7 minutes,
So,
people lose their focus.
so maybe I'm no one to suggest or whatever, but I believe. So it's a belief rather than a, hey, this is what I think is the truth. Belief. So please don't hold me against it or whatever. But I think
It's holding you completely accountable for everything you say.
no, I was going to say that I actually believe this attention span thing. I feel like we're getting a little wrong. I feel like people are watching anything, right? And I feel like you're right in that writing styles have to change. But I think length is, I feel like we overcomplicate
Duration.
duration. Like I feel like if something is great for 3 hours, people will still watch. So it's about, can you write something gripping for 3 hours, right? Can you write something funny in 30 seconds?
I mean, to be fair, like Kabir Singh, I mean, not my genre, but like is a 3-hour film and people and
Yeah,
is
and it was
gripping.
accepted widely. Now,
And
the
it's not
politics
like-
of those films aside,
Yeah.
the fact that en masse people who sat in theaters for 3.5 hours
And
without
watched it.
not much humor, right? It's not a
Correct.
very funny. None of those were funny.
And it's not heavy on action also. It's
Yeah.
I mean, it's a story that people found engaging and were able to watch for 3.5
So I think, and
hours.
similarly with books, right? Like I think sometimes, especially in the act of writing or in the act of making, people tend to forget the audience and the reader, and ultimately, and I guess like this is something we probably need to, like everyone needs to learn from stand-up comedians, in that the audience is always right, in that you're a slave to the audience and the reader. That ultimately you're doing what gets an emotion out of them, and that's what you're doing. You're telling your own story, you're telling your own experience or whatever it is, or your own script and your own story. But ultimately, I think you have to tell it in a way an audience or a reader will find it engaging. And that's where you have to completely humble yourself and submit yourself to be like, okay, these are the people I'm going to talk to, and what will they like to read?
So how do you know who these people are? Because every audience is different. Like
That you know. I think you know who you're talking to. If you're writing to your 10 friends in film school and you want their approval, let's go for it. Get their approval and write for it. But if you're trying to be like, hey, I want to write for
everyone lives
my family, then write for it. But if you're going to be like, hey, if I get into an auto and I want the auto driver to understand what I am saying, then you have to write for that person. And it depends on it. And that's up to the person who's writing, whether that's me, you, to be like, do I want to write a story for this person? You're automatically rejecting that person as your audience member the minute you write a story a certain way. Like, very simple thing, right? Like, let's say if you're writing, I don't know, if your scene involves a coffee or something, you can either call it latte and then gone. Like the minute you call it an espresso latte, blah, 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 it's eliminated like some 80%. The minute you call it cappuccino, it brings a few more people. The minute you call it coffee, it brings a few more people. The minute you call it filter coffee, it brings a lot more people. So I think that's how you as a writer are automatically choosing your audience. And then when you choose them, you have to, I think, be like completely humble to them, like completely humble and submit yourself to them. Yeah.
So how early on when you're in the writing process do you know who you're speaking to? Or do you find that through the gradual
I
process
think
of
you
writing?
actually, I think you start with someone in mind. So when I was writing this book, you see this?
That's Chiranjeevi.
The book. Forget the actors and all. The book.
No, but
the
Chiranjeevi.
important name is Mukesh Manjunath. This guy. But the book. For me, it was very simple, right? I was like, hey, I want to write to people who watch Telugu cinema, but who can also read Salman Rushdie, but who can also read, who can also watch some Iranian films. That's a demographic I was clearly writing for. Who can read an academic text, who can read Ramchandra Guha. I was like, okay, that's the kind of demographic I was writing for. And I was very clear. So I have a couple, like, I always imagine, like, so the couple of people I had in mind, which is like, I know my sister as someone I have in mind when I was writing this book. Because it's a personal book, I know. So that's someone I kept in mind writing. I'm like, okay, will she get it? I know there's a friend of mine who sort of navigates the world of academia, Telugu cinema, some Instagram video, and there's a world that he occupies. Those who like have studied in the book, who have dedicated the book to, like, so I feel like that's how you actually imagine 2-3 people while writing this book. And then of course, so obviously it starts with those 2 people, and then and then it slowly increases, right? And I think that's how I approached also, and I think that's a fair thing, that you start with a very specific set of people, and then as you start telling, because ultimately you want to tell it to not just 2 people, you want to tell it to a broader audience, and then that's how you start increasing.
Is there money in writing books?
There's no money. There's no money writing, guys. Please do engineering. If your parents said do engineering, do it. I think there is and there isn't, because
like, for example, now for this book, how would you what is your revenue model? Like, what would you do?
There's the money that the
book sales, physical bill.
No. So actually, there's the money that the publisher gives you, and then there's a percentage from the sales of the book.
So the publisher gives you money to have the right to distribute the book.
Correct, exactly.
Okay, and there's
a fee you paid up front, and there's a percentage of the book that you get from sales.
And how long does that duration last?
Life.
Okay, so until it's public domain.
Until it's public domain.
So what if a publisher decides to stop publishing the book after a point?
Well, that's that. Like, hopefully we all write books that get to be published and people want to read forever.
Did you have any formal training in writing, or was it all like self-taught?
I didn't have any formal training in creative writing or an MF, Masters in Fine Arts and all of that. I don't have that. But I have a degree in humanities. I do have it in development studies, a master's. So that really helped because, except that wasn't a lot of creative writing, it was a lot of academic writing, which I was very bad at. I mean, like, just my grades were terrible.
But it got you into the habit of writing.
Yeah, I think more than a habit of writing, it got me into the discipline of doing research a little bit, or understanding what research is like, and like reading other texts to draw from to write your own text. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that I think was one thing that really helped me. And the other thing it helped me in terms of the habit of writing is that, one, it taught me not to be intimidated by large numbers, like 15,000 words, 50,000 words. Like this book, written by this guy.
Mukesh Manjunath. That's him.
That's me.
Chiranjeevi fans won't like that.
But my fans will. All 2 of them. Thank you, Mom.
And sister.
That's
her book, by the way.
Yeah. So I think where that degree helped me is to not be intimidated by large numbers. Like, so this book is about 70,000 words in the first word vomit draft. And then I cut it down to about 60,000, and the editor cut it down to about 50,000 or 50 to 55,000 if I'm not wrong. And so I think where I was really lucky that I wasn't that intimidated by that prospect. It didn't feel like it was a mountain to climb, but I knew how to pace myself out. I knew how to chapterize. I sort of knew how to write the beats out first before I just dive into writing the chapters. And I knew how to structure myself, and I knew how big a bite to take every day before just starting writing blindly.
Is this the first book you've written in completion?
It's not the first book I've written in completion. It's my... I do this. So there's a book I finished. Then there's an unfinished manuscript. So this is a manuscript, sorry. A book that's not published is called a manuscript. So there's one manuscript that's finished. There's one manuscript that's a fiction one that's about 2/3 finished. And then there's the one that's finished and executed, which found a publisher. And yeah, and also, I think this is the book that so I'll tell you a story about how this book came about, which is that I was looking to get published, and believe it or not, despite the low stakes of the publishing industry compared to film industry, publishing industry is insanely hard to get into. You need contacts and everything, right?
So you slept with someone?
I slept with someone. Slept my way to the top. My girlfriend. That's, no. So I think what happened was in 2019, MAMI, the film festival in Bombay, and HarperCollins tied up, and they had a competition, which said that they wanted a book on cinema, which should be awarded. And then I submitted. I said, okay, you know what? I want to write books, and this seems like some sort of a meritocratic way in which you can get published. And then that's how this book came about. And I applied to it. I got selected from a bunch of people. Then they said, okay, please write it. So I pushed all my other manuscripts aside and said, I'm going to focus on this book, and that's
They
how I
paid
got
you?
to. Yeah, of course they paid me, which was there. But I would have done it. Jokes on them, because I would have done it even if they didn't pay me.
What made you want to be in Bombay when you are from the Telugu speaking belt?
A little bit of idiocy and the idea that in Hyderabad I wasn't finding a lot of writing work.
How do you try to find writing?
Exactly, right? So that's the thing. In the sense that the good thing is there's no structure, and the bad thing is there is absolutely no structure. So you don't know who to go to, and there's no correct way. Like, there's no way I can tell someone to do this and that will work out for them. And there's no way someone can tell me, hey, do this and it'll work out for me. So writing work in India now can be pretty much anything, right? Like, okay, I'll tell you, can I tell you the most random gig I've ever done for money? It was my first year in Bombay. I can't name the actress, but I filled up an interview for an actress, like a newspaper interview. The actress didn't want to do it, so her manager reached out somehow, like some number got forwarded. And they were saying, hey, fill up this interview as if you were an actress and just write it out, whatever she would say for this really leading publication. And I just got paid and then I got paid in black. I got paid like 45,000 in black. And I was like, wow, this is the best money I ever made, right? And that was so much fun. But the reason I also went to Bombay is because I wasn't getting those leads in Hyderabad. Like, okay, but other than the very unstructured
Did you
stuff,
have scripts that you were showing, or were you looking for work as a writer to write something for someone?
I think I actually didn't even know what I was looking for. I just wanted to be in places where I could write, and that stuff that I wrote could get made. And I think this was around circa 2015, 16, 17. And at that point, YouTube videos were the big thing, right? Writing for YouTube videos.
Chai Biscuit and all were picking
Exactly.
up.
But I couldn't get into them. I couldn't make my inroads into them because either they didn't like my stuff or they didn't.
Your lost Chai Biscuit.
Yeah.
And Silly Monks.
Yeah. You can still hire me. I'll do it for free.
He won't.
Yeah.
He won't. He's better than that. He's written a book now.
Paid in black, and I'll do anything for you.
I'm going to get raided after this.
And they find 1,000 rupees. That's unaccounted for. So anyway, I wasn't finding that work, and I think because my family's from Hyderabad, you feel like the gaze of family constantly, right? Especially when you're not doing stuff, and you feel it's even harsher and harder on you. And I just felt like, you'd heard about Bombay having a lot more writing work, because Bombay has a lot more brands, there's a lot more advertising work in Bombay, there's a lot more brand-related social media work in Bombay, which is how I think I managed to end up get some work there and sneak my way around and make some money first. I think for the first time, you taste some money through writing is just because of Bombay. Whereas in Hyderabad, I wasn't making any money. And I don't know if you know, in life, making money is kind of important.
It is, yeah.
I think the one thing I would say, at least I've seen other young writers, the one thing I feel like I was like that and I successfully broke that is, I think every writer at some level needs to have some degree of labor and something, just do anything. When you're starting out, just to, like I said, just do random shit. And I feel like it took me about 2.5 years to be like, I'm like, hey man, I'm a screenplay writer and I'm only going to write for the top publications in this country. And then you're like, after a certain level of being broke and needing to pay rent, you'll be like, sir,
I'll fill in your interview.
I will fill in your interview. I will fare out your thing. I will do any work, just pay me money. I will do some social media gig for a startup which pays less money. I will do some
How
brand work.
long into moving to Bombay did you start finding your own feet to be able to survive on yourself? I mean, you probably did take support from your parents initially, right?
Yeah, I think definitely the first 6 months I was, because whatever I was making was not enough. And then after that, I was breaking even. But weirdly, so I thought once I broke even, now I'm going to see profits. I'm like, Shah Rukh Khan, watch out. I'm coming next one. But actually, the break-even phase was the longest. Like, I was about for a good year and a half or 2 years even. Like, you're just breaking even, right? And it's like you're just in that life jacket, just floating around. And then at some point, you slowly get an opportunity to write a book. You get to write. So I started working for Film Company and I started writing for them. Like, you figure out stuff that you get to do that pays. But yeah, I think the making money wasn't incredibly hard, but going past break-even was really hard. Like, that's the part that almost broke
When you can
me.
have savings.
Yeah, savings is... Right? And it's also weird because you're seeing your friends like, oh yeah, I bought a house. And I'm like,
I'm going on holiday.
I'm thinking twice to buy a coffee. But yeah, and then I think at some point it's some sort of persistence and some sort of like doing any random work, hopefully will.
But how do you get the random work?
I don't know, man. Like I said, like,
What? You're just sitting in like Bandra and like people are like, hey, ye Mukesh hai na Bandra ka Mukesh, usko kaam de.
So it's so weird. Like someone is saying, you can't really structure it. And I think I know so many people who are like this. And if you ask them, they're like, I don't know what I did. You just do the random gigs. Like, okay, like I said, right? Like I once did a social media gig. And then the guy who did help me.
Oh, how do you get the social media gig?
So a little bit of cold calling, a little bit of privilege ka use karna. Like I have some friends. Like,
Cold calling isn't DMing on Instagram or actually physically calling?
all of that. DMing on Instagram, writing a Gmail saying, hey, I would love to, if your brand has some space, I would like to work for them. Or you have a friend who works on a shoot or whatever.
What do you put in that email? Would you put like a writing sample? Would you put an introduction?
Yeah, so writing samples is something that I keep putting. Like what, I remember I maintained a blog. Even though blogs had gone out of fashion by 2016, I was like, I'm going to make millions blogging. And then so I know the first writing samples I was sent were those blogs, and this really funny 22-year-old trying to be like, hey, life, all of that. And I think those got the internships, and those got that, okay, this kid can write some stuff. So go college for, and then they have a friend who, like when you go to Bombay, when I went to Bombay, I had a few friends and they helped me get a bunch of work at a few places, at least gigs. They helped me get gigs, right? To be like, okay, work at this place, work as an intern who does research for this travel show. That's one of the first gigs I got, to be an intern for research for a travel show. Stuff like that. So I think then I had a very helpful school senior who said, okay, go be an intern, which I think which I know that's privilege, right? And you get that.
Yeah, internships also hard to get.
Oh my God, it's crazy how hard even internships are. I'm like, yeah, so.
तुम्हें free में काम करना है,
So
line
then,
में रखो.
at that internship, you work with 10 people, and then hopefully you make an impression on 6 people, and then some guy
Will
works
call
on
you in
some
the future.
random thing, and that's it. And that's literally it. And I think, and that's what you can't plan for it, you can't advise for it, but you just have to do the really random shit. But I think maybe very early on, because I saw other people trying to be too
Pushy?
not too pushy, because I think I saw other writers being like, they were above some forms of writing, like the really dirty work, right, which is writing these interviews or writing for brands and all that.
Writing an Urdu
I felt
film.
like, okay, I can't be like that. And because I was like that, I was passing a little arrogant about my writing, even before I achieved anything.
Like when you moved to Bombay, you already had that
I
notion
was
in your
like,
head.
I will only write Shah Rukh Khan's next script. I will only write for the
How did
Guardian.
Jawan go for you?
Huh?
How did writing for Jawan go?
Oh, it was good. I wrote the dialogues. No, it's my biopic actually. My father came for me. But no. But yeah, so I think then you sort of,
Yeah.
Bombay completely humbles you a little bit, and then you just do what you do. So it's very random. You can't really plan for being a writer. It's crazy. Like, I don't know how to tell people to be a writer. I would always be like, do enjoy it. But yeah, you do what you have to do.
No, I think the hardest part is also like that perseverance and balancing perseverance with like survival. Survival at the end of the day comes down to money, right?
I see. So here's the thing, right? Like, I would automatically always say, I feel like in general, the most important things are privilege, luck, and then maybe perseverance. So, thoda to
Yeah.
got privilege.
How do I get to the door? That's privilege.
Yeah.
Luck is that person on the other
I
side of the
said
door.
angry that day.
Yeah.
Is he home that day?
Yeah.
And then perseverance is, can I keep knocking twice?
Yeah.
That's
Like will he get
basically-
annoyed if I keep coming back?
Yeah, exactly. And like,
Or she.
Or she.
Yeah.
Or she.
Yeah. No, but that's I mean, that's I think because with I think assisting people like as an assistant director, at least for me, like once you kind of latch on to one director, I'm saying latch on, but I did, like you kind of have consistent work as long as they keep making films.
Yeah.
If they like you, that is. Because like in our team, it would be me and one more person who were like the regular cast, the other were guest cast who would come in, get fired, come in, get fired. Like a lot of people like get recycled, like thrown out of projects. And like you said, dignity of labor, all that like is something that you have to forget about in the start of your career, because the moment you make an impressionable impact on someone, they will call you back for work,
Yeah,
right?
and also the thing I realized much later is that actually even my friends are doing other works, like they're architects and lawyers. They're also doing pretty garbage work. They're able to just sell it better. They're getting paid more for sure. Maybe not architects, but the other people are getting paid more for sure. But they're also doing pretty garbage work within their own field. I think between like that 22 to 26, you have to do really shitty work, I think. At
Bro,
whichever
my
field
friend
you're in.
worked in Deutsche Bank and he would make PPTs.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean,
And I'm like, dude, I make fucking PPTs.
correct. So I think
like 5 years
that's one
ago.
thing that I think we forget as when you're young and you're damn cocky. We're like, oh, you're doing shitty work no matter which field you're in. Even if you're doing your family business and you're like Big Boss ka beta or beti, then you're still being like, "Arey jana, wala, do the accounts." You have to do some.
Yeah, you're
level
doing
of
some
garbage.
bitch work.
Yeah, you have to do some garbage work in that early stage, and I think maybe that's the one thing. Like, I hate giving advice. I feel like that's the one thing I would tell is like, hey, just be ready if you're between the age of 22 to 27, 26, just you're doing garbage work, whichever field you're in. So if you're doing it and you're ready to do it in whichever field, you might as well do it in the one that you really want to do.
That you're passionate about.
That you're passionate about. And then, yeah.
Do you think there's a timeline of how many years you need to give as a writer to like try and like see is this something that I can sustain as a career? Like I tell people 10 years. Like in 10 years, if you don't see a big change, then maybe you're not cut out for it, or maybe it's not meant for you.
I don't know, man. Like, especially in India, it's so hard. In India, there's so many, like, at least in the West, there seems to be some structure about it. Like, that you can have this time. But India, it's so random. You don't know when some opportunity will come. So, I don't know. I feel like it's just up to I would say it's up to each person's individual privilege level and dependency level. I think for whatever, like, let's say, touch wood, for you and me, there aren't too many dependents. So, we could give, say, 5-6 years at first. And then maybe when things worked out, we're a little happy. But I know people who could give up in 2 years because they just had to get back home. So I think, I would say actually, more than before finding out the number of years, find out, I think it's important to find out what the reality of your life is. And that pretty much determines where you are. So I would feel like, okay, if you're upper middle class, fairly well off, then maybe, yeah, I think in India it'll be about 5 years, 6 years. If you're middle and below, then maybe it's either 2 years or your whole life. Like, you know, then it's like, it's either nothing or everything. And if you're absolutely at the top, 10 boss, then you have the oyster is at your fingertips.
But okay, has there ever been a point where you wanted to quit?
Yeah, of course.
How often does that happen?
I think a lot more often early on because it's like, oh man, should I just get back home? My parents right along, and your parents are right. Always your parents are right. But there was a moment, and then you just, I think you learn bravery a little bit every day. I think it is a little bit of bravery to just, it's a little bit of bravery to even accept that, okay, I am feeling like a failure. So, but it's okay. I will try one more day, and then you come to a stage where you feel some balance. But yeah, early on, though, pretty much, I think the first day I was in Bombay, I was like, okay, I need to head back home.
What is the most demotivating thing about it, though?
It's going to sound arrogant, but I guess it is. It also happened at an age when you're very arrogant, which is 23, 22, which is that you feel like, hey man.
Big dick energy.
It's also, you're just like young person, I want to do the greatest thing ever. And I think I was like serving tea or something to some talent on a set. And I was like, dude, if my parents knew I was doing this, they'd be really embarrassed. And you're also thinking, what, I'm getting my college degree, all of that, I'm fucking serving tea, and I'm like going to the edit room, I'm getting coffee for some guy, I'm sitting in like, it's cold and hell in that edit room. You know, I'm not even getting lunch properly. I have to go down, just curry. If you're on set, you're never eating lunch. You're just currying a meal somehow randomly.
You're inhaling
I think there was that phase when I was like, there was about 20 days when that was my life because we were editing something. And I remember those 20 days very clearly, and those were really bad. Like, I remember definitely having some, like, now I know there was some sort of like anxiety or panic attack or whatever, but with mental health paper, I didn't know that much. But I think it was that phase. I remember those 20 days very clearly. And it felt like that.
And what made you stay?
Friends. I think you chill with friends. It's like, yeah, come. You see other people also struggling. It's like, okay, come. And then you're like, okay. Then they console you, and then you're like, okay, you know what? It can't get lower than this.
Yeah. Do you work with film school writers?
Yeah, I have. So that's why film school are mostly writers who've done like actual degrees in creative writing. Worked with a few of them, and yeah, I do. I can see them struggling with the lack of structure and like how unplanned and organized it is. I guess with writers, the fall is a little less harder because it's not as technical and physical a place, right? It's still mostly writers.
It's an intimate space.
It's an intimate space and it's writers, but I think the technical, like the DOPs and the directors and the makers, it's just it's a hard learning for them, I've noticed.
So Mukesh has also done a lot of fun work. Like many of you may not know, but like Filmfare and IFA is scripted.
Yeah.
And it's scripted by people like him, and originally by people like Akash Khurana, Adar Khurana, who are now making shows on Netflix and making films like Karwan with like fucking Dulquer Salman.
Yeah.
And now Mukesh has been doing that for a while.
So I one of my greatest moments. I'm not going to take any names because I don't have enough money to get sued. He will sue me like 1,000 rupees.
No, but it's India. By the time they sue you, by the time it comes to trial, you'll be successful.
I'll be successful and then it all goes.
20 years from now.
So I think there was one time we did a segment, right? And the host is presenting, and the next person who's presenting the award is always on standby to come. And then the person who's presenting was like, okay, I need to go to the loo, I need to go to the toilet. And it's a live show. So we're telling the host saying, hey, please stall for 2 more minutes because the guy who's supposed to present is going to go to the toilet. And the host is like, what do you mean stall? I'm literally at, and the next presenter is. So I'm running my way backstage to be like, so please don't go to the toilet. So please don't go to the toilet. Please present this award. And I'm like, why am I convinced? I guess one of those lows in life. We're convincing a celebrity to not go to the toilet. And you're getting yelled at by a celebrity because they're like, who the fuck is this kid telling me to not go to a toilet, not use the toilet? And the host is pissed off. He's like, what do you mean stall a live show for 2 minutes? I can't be like, and for my next act, I'm going to juggle. Like, what are they going to do?
You didn't blame it on? I like Shahrukh boy, bhai bol rahe.
Yeah, it's not. I wish it was Shahrukh. Because then I did not have told the name. Agar it was Shahrukh hota, I would have told the name. But he used to get sued and I get to meet him again. For the first time. But yeah, but no, it wasn't. It was a lot more B level, and that was like, to me, it was like, how am I, what did I do in my life and degree that I'm convincing of this reasonably big celebrity to not use the loo and just present the award and go off?
That's 80% of your job as an AD, by the way.
Yeah.
Just telling actors not to go to the bathroom.
And then once, right? This is amazing. So, okay, there's a legend of Indian cinema, right? This is a big award show by a big media publication. The media publication's name is right there, right? Right? And then, so it's the host, the presenter, and the legend is right in between. And the legend of Indian cinema goes, I'm so happy I received this award from my very good friend. So, what's your name? And he goes, I didn't make lena. And I was like, oh my God, that's happening live. And then he goes, it's really my honor to receive the dash times award.
That sounds like Balakrishna would do.
No, it's Hindi. So it's happened in Bombay. And I was like, wow, this guy called, like, that was incredible for me. How much that was not how I imagined award shows.
So they didn't follow the script.
They didn't know who they were thanking, the very good friend. They didn't know which award they were receiving. These celebrities receive such a random award.
So how do you get these gigs for award shows?
So I used to work at this company called Weird Ass, and then they used to write for these scripts. That's how I got my first opportunity. And then once I left that company, then people who work there still know me, and then it's just like a contact basis.
Mm-hmm. So last bit now. We're about to wrap up the episode, but before that, we're going to show you this lovely book. It is called The Age of Heroes. It's written by Mukesh, and The Incredible World of Telugu Cinema. So, I mean, unfortunately, I'm going to be very honest, I didn't finish the whole book.
That's okay.
But I read a good chunk.
Even I haven't actually.
I've read a good chunk of it, and what made you, like, I know why you kind of took the initiative to, write the book, but what drew you, what made you want to finish the book? It's hard to finish it also, right?
I think there were two things, right? So this actually, this book, I think, is some sort of, it's actually about not the heroes and the actual stars and the cultures in the background, and it's about the people who actually enjoy it, right, in my life. So it's in the first chapter deals with my grandmother who loved Telugu cinema, who told me about stories, right? Yeah, and the second one is about my Telugu teacher and his disillusionment with literature and all of that. And another chapter is about my father and his relationship with cinema. So it's a very personal book that way. And I think it's mostly about what makes people love Telugu cinema. And the reason I think I got to writing about it is that first, obviously, I read a lot. I like to read a lot. And the idea is that I feel like I never saw the people that I talk about in the books that I read. And I felt like it's an absence, right? Like, you read R.K. Narayan and there's like small town Tamil villages, right? And you read Salman Rushdie and there's this magically real India somewhere, and I feel like each part of India was sort of in some way not represented, but I always felt like, hey, why is it that
the Telugu states?
No, why is it that there are these people who love cinema so much, but it's just never been spoken about, it's never been written about, So I thought, okay, I don't want to write about the actors. I don't want to comment on them. It's not about them. To me, it's not about the actors. It's about the people who love that cinema. And I thought, okay, how can I tell the story about these people using something that they love? And I think that's where the book sort of came from. And I think that's why the book is also very personal. There's a lot of personal anecdotes. There's a lot of...
I mean, it's basically like, have you read City of Gins?
Yes, a little bit.
It reminded me a lot of City of Gins. It's kind of like your diary.
It is a sort of a memoir. I think it is written very conversationally also, because I don't want to, like I said, it's not to intimidate someone. It's not an academic text, although there is hints of taking some sort of academic base. But I think it's broadly about people and their relationship with cinema and how it changes. And it explores how we talk about, say, cinema being so political, actors being political, or being these cultural figures, but how much cinema influences personal life decisions and life choices and relationships. Right? It made the relationship with my grandmother that much richer, which is what the second chapter technically is about. It changed the course of my Telugu teacher, who I sort of explore. But when he took a big decision in his life based on Telugu cinema.
Your Telugu teacher read the book?
I've got it to him. I don't know if he's read it. Hopefully he reads it. It changed. There's a bit about my father and how much it, there's a odd relationship with men and their fathers. There's a relationship, and how much cinema sort of thought that relationship for between man and my father. So I think it's something like that. Like it does explore that really, and like how it also talks about caste, but it talks about how much the obsession with caste, of course, it impacts society, and that's very important. But most importantly, it affects a friendship between two kids, which in that case, me and my friend when we were 7 years old. And I think ultimately it's that it looks at this world and the people who love this world from a childlike gaze, and that's what I wanted to retain. And I think in most of the stories I tell, I was probably younger than 10 or 12. I think that's probably what I'm trying to do. That it's like, how does this world appear to a child, and how do the people who love this world appear to a child? And I think that's what I wanted to achieve. Yeah, I think that's why, because ultimately at some level, whenever you write any book or you write any story, you're trying to talk about yourself. You're trying to find a hook to talk about yourself. I think for me, cinema was that hook, and that's how I got to it.
But I mean, you clearly were enamored by films like from a young age, because I mean, I think your grandmother was the one who kind of pushed you into like, you went to some theater in some other city to watch a movie
film,
because it was based in that city. Which movie was it? Okudu.
Okudu, yeah. Yeah. So my grandmother was obsessed, and I think she was just obsessed with stories in general, right? Mm-hmm. She told me terrible stories. But I think I just appreciated the fact that she wanted to tell stories.
Was it like that Amar Chitrakatha type?
No. Honestly, my grandmother was one of the worst storytellers I've ever met, but I just loved that she wanted to tell me.
No, but you do talk about in the book, you talk about how, like, why her stories were so bad, but because, like, she grew up with, like you said, 3 stories or 4 stories.
4 stories. Oh, and she kept repeating them. And also, I think, in general, I don't know if it's true for everybody, but a lot of people I know, the grandmothers are the first people who tell us stories, whether it's folk stories, whether it's family gossip, whether it's actual, like, whatever religious stories, whether or not religious stories. So I feel like that's why it was such an important thing for me. And I think for some reason, it's a little emotional, but I think she was a widow. And I think in the family, you know how widows are sort of, especially in a very conservative society, widows are left to a certain corner. And for some reason,
and that's why they become fun.
Exactly. Right? And for some reason, I think she found me as the only place where she could deposit her life experiences a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I think I was very lucky. And I was the only one she could take to all these movies with. So it just became like a catharsis for her. I'm very thankful for that. But I wish, she just saw better. But that's it. And that's pretty much how the first experience with movies and like storytelling actually came about.
So, I've read, like, I haven't finished the book, but I've read a lot of it, and it's really, really funny. It is funny, like, and it's not like a serious book, like he's saying. It's something you can just pick up and read anytime. And obviously, if you do have any fascination with Telugu cinema, it's something that you definitely should read, because it starts off literally like from like the OGs, like NTR, ANR's era, to like Pawan Kalyan and people like that from now, and talks about how audiences have been impacted by these stars, how politics have been affected by these stars, and how they kind of, even though they're just like artists making movies, how they kind of have an impact on every single person's life who lives in these Telugu states. And yeah, it's definitely a book you should read. And
Even if you're not fascinated with Telugu cinema,
so
but if you like
Chiranjeevi
joy
for this?
as a person, I think you should read this book. If you don't like joy, then that's fine.
Before we close, any closing words of advice to aspiring screenwriters and how they should start their journeys?
Don't. Why suggestion
But
is,
if they do.
If they do, listen to your parents and don't. But if you do, just keep at it and keep writing and don't think you're too cool for any form of writing. Write everything and anything you can get your hands on. Yeah, that's it.
All right. Thank you guys for watching. Like, share, subscribe, buy the book. It's available on Amazon. You can get it on a Kindle. And if you're lucky, you can get it for free by looking for PDFs online. But don't.
Yeah, please don't. Yeah,
He makes money out of this. And we've heard his story. He likes money.
Yeah, well, the income tax eventually comes to read me. They need to find more than 1,500 rupees. So please, guys, make that dream come true. So yeah, let's do that.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mukesh.
Thank you.